Good afternoon. Right now we are interviewing Sarah Sundin on her latest book, In Perfect Time. It is the final book in the Nightingale Wings of the Nightingale series, and she is in Boston, so she has decided to visit CBD. We're very blessed to have her because she is looking and researching for her next series, and we'll talk to her a little bit about that. Welcome, Sarah.
Thank you for having me.
The book In Perfect Time was just an amazing story, and it seemed to have a lot of depth to it as far as factual background. Have you been to Italy?
I have. We were there in 2011.
Now,
really nice.
What made you choose this particular area and this particular theater?
Well, partly because I like to go with things that haven't been explored quite as well. And I wanted to tell about the story about the flight nurses. And I wanted to write 3 stories. And the Mediterranean theater went from 42 to 45, so that gave me plenty of space and time to write a 3-book series. And it had this beautiful setting of everything from North Africa to Sicily into Italy and then southern France. So just gorgeous settings. And it's also an area that not many people are aware of, that a lot of people don't even know that we fought in Italy or Sicily. So I wanted to tell that story too.
Now, there was something about that we had in our discussion about not wanting to write anymore about B-17s. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, I do. My first series, Wings of Glory, followed 3 B-17 pilots. And I often get reader emails asking me to write more B-17 stories, but I'm out of ideas and was getting kind of tired of writing them. So I wanted to write something different too. So I was writing about the Mediterranean and the flight nurses, so just something a little different. And then the next series will be Navy. It's just I didn't want to get completely pigeonholed in just one area.
So instead of writing about B-17s, you wrote about C-47s.
So,
okay.
And about nurses and pharmacists and aviation engineers. So
Now, you obviously do a tremendous amount of research. As a matter of fact, on your website, you show places, times, and actual events that happened that correlate to your book. Mm-hmm. What was the most intriguing thing that you found in your research for In Perfect Time?
Well, In Perfect Time was a fun book to research. The invasion it covers what they called Operation Dragoon or Operation Anvil, which was the invasion of southern France. Another area we all know about D-Day on June 6th, but not many people know about France's second D-Day, August 15th. And that really solidified the gains that they were making from D-Day and opened up a big harbor and port. So it was really interesting learning about something that, once again, not a lot of people learn about and know about.
Now, you mentioned, this is a little bit of a spoiler alert, but not really. A plane went down over enemy territory, mm-hmm. and you described at least 3 months of the people. They were not in captivity. Mm-hmm. They were actually protected by partisans.
Yes.
And I was wondering if that was based on a real situation, or
there was a real story, and that actually inspired In Perfect Time, where a C-47 medical air evacuation flight went down over Nazi-occupied Albania, and this group of flight nurses and medics were being hidden by Albanian partisans for over 2 months. And they tried an air rescue. The Americans and British wanted to get these guys out of there. And of course the Nazis were hunting them too. And they managed to keep them hiding for 2 months, and then they were able to get them out safely. But there was one group of nurses that had missed. There was an air raid on the town they were hiding in, and they got separated, and there was a group of, I think, 3 nurses that were left behind, and they had to send in a second rescue operation to get those ladies out. And that was just such a fascinating story. They were traipsing over the mountains in winter, and their shoes were worn out, and they were eating goat meat, and it was a really harrowing time. I had to modify that story, not just partly due to the timeline, but partly because that story happened to real people, and I didn't want to put my fictional people. I didn't want to replace real people with fictional people. So I wanted to create a similar but different situation. But so my story was inspired by that real incident.
Now, that brings me to mind. When you develop your characters, how do you go about developing your characters? Are they based on someone who's real? Are they a figment of your imagination? How do you develop them as a person?
It's mostly mystery. I never base them off real people. Never. I'm afraid of lawsuits. But
Fair enough.
But they're often inspired by, bits and pieces. Like Kay Jobson in Perfect Time.
Yes.
What inspired her story, this was probably 15 years ago. There's a family at my church. The father and mother have gorgeous singing voices. And they had, I think, 4 children, 3 boys and a girl, all with beautiful singing voices. And they would sing as a family, a cappella. Beautiful music. And I remember one morning saying to my husband, wouldn't it be a bummer to be born into that family and not be able to sing? And I know this family personally. I know they would have adored this child and nurtured that child and forgiven that child for not being able to sing. But I thought to myself, what if there was a family that saw this as a blessing from God, and they had this child who couldn't sing and saw this child as therefore evil and damaged and possibly sinful because this, she's been cursed with this bad voice. And so her character started to grow from that what if question.
That was interesting.
Yeah.
The fact that she couldn't sing. I could relate.
I can too. I have a horrible voice. And that's probably why I was thinking about, I'm glad I wasn't born into that family because, yes, I was imagining myself in that family. But I know they would have, they're a very neat family, so they would have. They would have embraced.
Anyway.
Yes.
Well, now the reason you're here is, and I'm jumping ahead of myself a little bit, but the reason you're here is you're doing research on a new series.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about the series? Give us a sneak peek.
Yes, the new series has an official title now. It's called Waves of Freedom. And
excellent title.
Yeah, I liked it because it kind of ties in with the Wings of the Nightingale and Wings of Glory, but it's a little different. Tells you where I'm not doing planes this time. I'm doing boats, ships, and I liked the freedom with the Freedom Trail for Boston, though the Freedom Trail wasn't established until the 1950s. But I kind of liked that little bit of a tie-in with Boston. So
that's really interesting.
Yeah, so this
I hadn't
series,
put that together.
Yeah, so this series follows 3 naval officers who are based in Boston during World War II. Actually, the series starts before World War II in 1941, when we were our ships were escorting British convoys across the Atlantic before Pearl Harbor. We were shooting at U-boats, and U-boats were shooting at us, and we lost 1 destroyer, 115 men killed, the USS Reuben James, and there were 2 others one other that was damaged with quite a few men killed, and I think 6 of our merchant ships were sunk by U-boats before Pearl Harbor.
Wow.
And most people don't even know about that. So I'm having this story. The first book will be following that year when we were fighting, but we weren't at war, and all that was going on the home front. So.
Well, it's funny. This came up actually at lunch. Why Navy instead of Army or Air Force or
partly
Marines?
I wanted to do something different. I didn't want to do another plane story. And also my grandfather was in the Navy. And my father, he's a sailor. He has a sailboat. He loves the ocean. And my mother too. And they go on lighthouse tours. They love lighthouses. They love all things nautical. So I was kind of raised with this. And I always thought it'd be fun to do a Navy story. And my publisher is more interested in home front, and they're not as interested in the Pacific stories, so I was looking at the Atlantic. And then, as I said, this whole early Battle of the Atlantic part where we were involved really was interesting to me. And then the second and third book will be following when there were so many ships that were being sunk right here on the East Coast. I mean, hundreds of ships being sunk on the East Coast inside of land. and the fight to control the U-boats and to get convoys established. And so that'll be following that. And of course, I've got fun stories for my heroines too. And this series is different for me because each story has a little bit of a mystery component where she's trying to solve something that's going wrong. And
Oh, that'll be fun.
yeah,
Very
yeah.
interesting.
Challenging to write.
One of the things that about a CBA versus ABA, we've discussed this, is that the CBA is a very collaborative group of authors. It doesn't matter what level of writing you're on, everyone's there to support everyone else.
Yes.
And you were writing about a collaborative D-Day anniversary blog tour for World War II. Can you tell us a little bit about that and how many people were involved?
Yeah, that was fun. Just looking at all the books that were coming out for 2014, I noticed that there were about a dozen World War II novels that were coming out after so many years of just only a handful, and a dozen in 2014. And I was noticing a lot of my friends in that group, and I thought, wouldn't it be fun if we were to get together and do some type of cross-promotional event? And then we also had the 70th anniversary of D-Day this year. So I sent out Facebook messages to about a dozen World War II writers that I knew and said, hey, you guys know anybody else that might be interested in this? And they were all really enthusiastic. And so 10 of us ended up getting together, and we did a 10-day event. We had a big giveaway of books, and we each posted on our blogs. And the rest of us, so whoever, when it was my day to post to my blog, all the others were promoting my post, and then we reversed it for everybody. So everybody got a turn to be in the spotlight. And we each got to highlight each other's books too. And it was so much fun because there was such a variety. We had Holocaust stories. We had one set in the East Indies, and mine was set in Italy, and we had home front stories, and they were all over England. They were all over the place. And it's just showing you the variety of really great Christian fiction set in World War II right now.
And having
Good
10
stuff.
different authors. Now, one of the things that happened to you by doing this collaborative effort that you mentioned that you noticed is that there was an increase overall in blog people following the blogs, people. So
we all noticed it. All 10 of us noticed increased sales, increased blog hits, increased Facebook likes, all of that.
Which is amazing.
Yeah,
that's,
I think,
neat. It's the collaborative and cooperative effort.
And we made friends too. We got to introduce our readers to new authors, and it was so much fun. We're hoping to do something again in the future.
Can you name some of the authors?
Oh, I hope I can remember them all.
Don't worry, if you don't.
It was Kara Putman and Tricia Goyer and Murray Pura. I hope I pronounced his name right. And Sigmund Brower, Kathy Golke,
Melanie Dobson,
I can forget Melanie, and Christy Cameron, and Patty Smith Hall, and me. I got them all. So.
Well done. And some of these were debut authors that were touring with more seasoned authors. And I have to say that I've read almost all of them.
Yeah.
And they are wonderful books. So by all means, make sure you read them. Now, do you have a critique partner?
I do. I have several, actually. Bonnie Leon, Ann Shorey, Sherry Kyle, Judy Gann, Marcy Weidemuller. I'm forgetting somebody. Oh, Linda Clare. And so we exchanged chapters. It's really great. Actually, it's kind of couple separate groups. So there are 4 of us that are in a group, and then I've added extra partners as.
I was going to say you have some contemporary, some romance, some historical.
Yes.
Wow, now. How did you happen to get together with your partners?
Primarily writers' conferences. Most of our friends I met at writers' conferences. Actually, Marcy Weidemuller is my oldest and best and favorite critique partner. We met in a local writers group, and we were both to the point where we just wanted more in-depth professional. And our in-person group was you read a chapter every 2 weeks, and obviously we write faster than that. So she and I started exchanging chapters, and now she's a professional content editor. She's really good at the big picture, which is where I usually get so obsessed with details that sometimes I forget the big picture. So she'll help me draw back and look at the big picture. So she's wonderful. And the others I've met mostly at writers' conferences and just people I've become friends with over the years. I can't stress for a beginning writer the importance of writers' conferences enough. And it's not just getting to pitch to editors and agents, but it's meeting your fellow writers, some who are ahead of you on the pathway, some of you are right beside you, and some who are coming up along behind you. And those relationships are key in every way. Love it.
Now, what's your favorite part of writing?
Oh, I like it all. I like the researching, obviously. I usually like the plotting. Sometimes I think the plotting is what I like the least, because I have a hard time getting it all. I call it a smackdown wrestling match sometimes, trying to make all the pieces fit in place. I love the draft phase. It's like adrenaline. But I also really like the editing. And I'm even coming to grips with the publicity and the social media and all that. So
you do very well with that.
Well, thank you. But there's very little that I dislike other than the making the pieces fit in the plotting phase. And even then, it's kind of a fun challenge. Like, my husband plays golf. He hates golf, but he loves golf. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of one of those things where the challenge annoys you, but drives you at the same time. So.
And what do you do to get away from it all?
Okay, that's the funny part. I don't know about you. It's getting easier. We have 3 kids, but 2 of them are in college now. One is still at home, but she's in college, and we have one high schooler. So, and he's
sitting with us.
Sitting with us
being
very
quiet.
patiently, and he's old enough to get his driver's license now. So, in general, I have fewer family commitments, so I'm getting a little more time. But writing is very relaxing to me. So, in
That's
a way,
how you get away from it all?
It is kind of my getting away, but it's also my job. But I have a great small group Bible study. I teach Bible study in Sunday school, so I've got those social groups. I read for fun. I love travel, so when I get a chance to travel, it's fun. But I'm afraid I'm not a hobby person. I go on Pinterest, I see all these crafts, I think, it's not me. I can't do it. I'm craft impaired. And I really am.
Well, I want to thank you so much for taking the time out today. It's been wonderful to get to see you again and get to know you better and to get to know your wonderful son over there who's playing solitaire. And thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Take care. Bye-bye.